There you go. Okay. See, oh, we got some people coming in. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're just going to get started in a few minutes. But you know, as we're waiting for more people to filter in, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. This is an opportunity for us to see who's in the audience, and also for you guys to connect with people digitally through this. So just let us know, you know, where you're viewing from, what you make, what you do. We are very curious. So, you know, while we're waiting for more people to come in, I'll just give you a little intro to who I am, what the topic is today. So my name is Anna Solomon. I am our host today. I'm the sales manager at NextFab Makerspace in Philadelphia and Wilmington. This month is one of a very long ongoing series that is about artisans in business. So every month we do a topic, and today we're really fortunate to have one of our members, people who's going to be in our gift guide coming up, and potential future speaker at our bigger event, joining us today. So really excited to hear about Margaux's story. The topic today is actually how to get into department stores and retail stores, which is like the big fish for a lot of artisan businesses. You know, how do you actually even approach getting into something that's so much larger than I think many of us work in? So that's what we're going to be talking about today, just strategies, how to think about it, how to prepare for it when you're actually ready. So we're going to be covering all those topics. And, you know, throughout the talk, if there's things that spark your interest, or you have a thought, idea, question, just put it in the chat or the Q&A. You'll see the Q&A actually at the bottom. Oh, I see chat is actually currently disabled. Thanks for letting me know. Give me one moment. Okay. Can someone try the chat and see if it works? Hooray. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. So you already found the Q&A function. So that's for when you have questions, just pop them in there. And we're going to leave ample time at the end, around 20 minutes, where we can actually get to your questions and see what you're specifically working with. And honestly, the more detailed, the better. Like if it's something that you're encountering right now, it'll probably be helpful for somebody else on the call. So don't lose those questions. Just put them in there and we will definitely get to them. And a few more housekeeping things. The recording is going to be sent out afterwards. It will probably come out a few days after. So you'll actually be able to come back, watch this talk. If there's something you missed, you can hear it again. So with that, I think we have a good number of people who came in, and I think we can get started. Once again, my name is Anna Solomon. For those of you who didn't hear in the beginning, I am the host today. I'm the sales manager at NextFab, and really fortunate to have Margaux here today of TWEE. A little background about Margaux is I have seen the TWEE business grow, even in, you know, the time I've seen it, and they were members. I think you've been members for 4 years, more, 4 or 5. Yeah, and you know, it's a really interesting idea of you know, children's product. Started, you know, like you said, in a garage. So we're going to hear about that story, and now has landed some really large accounts. And is able to fill those orders. So we're going to hear about that today. But Margaux, if you just could introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got started with TWEE.
Sure. My name is Margaux. I am the CEO of TWEE. I have my background, I should not be doing this job. So I have an undergraduate in gender studies. I have a double master's in museum studies. My first job was press relations for New York Fashion Week. And my most recent job outside of TWEE was curator of education for the Civil War Museum. So it is an incredible journey that got me here. TWEE was started actually in my son's preschool art class. At the time, Etsy had, it had the selling like it does now, but it also had a wholesale wing that started to introduce the concept of getting into stores. TWEE was in about 20 stores, and then we really focused on expanding that number, and it took us to where we are today. I should say that for anyone who doesn't know, TWEE is handmade sidewalk. I apologize. TWEE is handmade sidewalk chalk. We do everything here in Philadelphia. It is made in Philadelphia. We do the packaging here. We do the shipping from here. We use only US made suppliers for our boxes, and really take pride in the fact that we are a women-owned manufacturer in Philadelphia.
It's amazing. Thank you.
I'm excited.
Yeah, and for everyone, I just put a link to TWEE's website in the chat. So if you want to see the chalk, you can see why it's so special and beautifully made, and creative. So yeah, I see. What does TWEE mean? That's a great question.
TWEE is British slang for too cute. And I like to think, like, what happens in my head is someone comes up and they're like, oh, that's so cute. And I think, but it's serious business too. So it has this like double meaning to me.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think to transition into our topic today, you have had some really large wholesale accounts. I think it's Nordstrom is one of the big ones. So I'd love to hear sort of the story behind how that actually came about. Like, where were you at when you started? Like, how many units were you making? And what actually led you to feeling like you were prepared to encounter a large store?
So I will say we were not prepared to encounter a large store, but I don't actually think anyone fully is, unless they go into it saying, I'm going to mass produce something. Like anything that happens, my mother made me do it. She has 6, so we're in like 30 wholesale stores, little independent stores. They were our bread and butter then. It is our bread and butter now. My mom has 6 grandkids. She's constantly at Nordstrom's in the children's department. And I was with her one day and she said, why aren't you in here? And I was like, because it's Nordstrom and it's a huge store, and look around and we're making it in a garage. And she was like, shouldn't stop you. So when we were paying, because she's chatty with the people, they know her, and I was like, can you tell me, because I knew what I needed to do, because a big store is very similar to a small store in terms of the buying infrastructure. I said, who's your buyer? Like, do you have one, or are there a bunch of them? And the woman at the register was like, oh yeah, there's just one. She's like, oh, do you want her email address? It's like, yes, I would like her email address, because you have to be shameless. Like, you have to be like, I'm going to promote this. So she gave us the email address. I emailed her once and I did not hear back. I emailed her a week later. I did not hear back. And then I sent her a sample. From my public relations strategy or time, we would send out press kits all of the time. And it is like a mini press kit that we send. It is like a nice white box. It has the sticker, it has the info about it. It has the grass that is colorful, and then it has a couple of your best designs. Because what you want is you want them to open that box and be like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. So we sent her some samples. She got the samples on Friday, and we had our first PO on Monday. And she placed us in all 134 Nordstrom stores, which is ridiculous. So we literally, as we're getting the PO, are Googling terms like keystone pricing, which is that it's like in the middle. So you have this, like it's wholesale pricing. So if something's $24, it's 12 and 12.
Quick question, PO, can we just define PO?
Sorry, I'm sorry. It's a purchase order.
Great,
So you will, stores will talk about like placing an order, and they will float these numbers to you, but honestly, like none of it counts until you get an official PO. And it is a transmission from them saying, these are the quantities, and this is the delivery date, and this is the payment schedule. So that's like your, that's when you know you really have to produce your merchandise, when you have the PO. And then we filled it from I was just saying, I live in South Philadelphia in a row house. We filled the order from my row house. There was a mess everywhere for weeks and weeks. And also, when you are dealing with the big stores, they have, it's kind of like a brand book. It would be the best way that I can describe it. And it's hundreds of pages, and it tells you and anyone who would be sending product to the store how they want to receive it, what they want it to look like when it gets there. And it is to the minute detail of like a label needs to be printed in this font with the price on the left side, and it needs to be placed on your box on the right side, 1/4 inch and 2/4. Like it takes it all the way there. So we get the book, and I'm like, holy shoot, this is awful. It's all the things I'm bad at. It's all about accuracy, because that's really what it is. It's all about accuracy and, you know, uniformity. And I could not understand. It's like another language. And the other thing is that it's kind of daunting when you receive it for the first time too, because it's talking to everyone. It's talking to the people that are sending couches and the people that are sending like really expensive jewelry. So there's a lot to like sift through to find that one little piece of information that you need. So I was like, I know that Nordstrom prides themselves on customer service. So I got my little book, and I got in the car and I drove to Cherry Hill Mall, and went into the Nordstrom to the like information area, the desk, and I said, listen, I am going to be in the store soon, and I have this book and I do not understand it. Is there anyone in the warehouse that can help me? And they found someone to talk to me. And, you know, what was it helpful? No, but it was in a sense that it no longer made me feel, you know, so anxious about it, because like they're talking about you can't use bubble wrap. And I was like, what do you have other than bubble wrap? And the guy was like, no, everybody uses bubble wrap. And I'm like, okay, well, now I know it can be a little more lenient. But we figured it out, and we packed all the chalk up, and it lined the hallway of my house. And then on the day that it came to get picked up, this like huge tractor trailer came down the street, and the guy stops the car and he gets out, and I'm like, hi, I'm like, can you help me? Because I don't know what happens next. And he was like, do you have a pallet? And I was like, no. I'm like, because I've never done this before. And he was like, well, I've never driven and picked up from a residential house before. And I was like, okay, so we're all going to figure it out together. And he showed me how he like packed the pallet and took it all away. And it was 4 pallets that left my house. It was like one of the best days, because it had taken so long for us to get to that point, from the PO purchasing to the actual execution of all of their product. And I would like to say that Since then, I've learned so much, and every PO has been much smoother, but that is a big lie. Every order is its own beast, has its own hiccups, and you just have to kind of be ready for that and ready to accept it. And you have to be flexible with yourself as you're going through this process.
Hey, I have a question. What the type of timeline was it from purchase order to delivery date?
Each store is a little different, but one thing I want to say or really start with is you have to remember your most important thing is your brand. It is what you are sending out. So a store is going to ask for what's best for them, and it's your job to be protective of your brand, to figure out how you can accommodate them, but still be true to yourself and what you can produce. I have when a store calls or a big order, we ask for 8 weeks lead time. And then you negotiate it a little bit. But like, honestly, if someone's like, I'm going to need it in 4 weeks, I'm going to be like, yep. And then, but here's the thing, I will figure out how to make that happen. You don't overpromise. If you know you can't do it, it's okay to say no. It means that it's not right for you and your brand at this time. And it doesn't mean they won't come back to you later. But also know that literally everything is negotiation, and you don't always have to say yes to them.
I think that's a really important point. That a no now is a or a maybe now is potentially a yes later. That's better for you.
Yes.
I saw a question come in here. Can you talk a little bit about how this is similar and also different from entering those first like small scale stores? Can you talk a little bit about that starting process and then how this process has taken it to a different scale?
So we at TWEE are, when you ask me who my customer is, it would be the little independent stores. That is really what I love reaching out to, where I like to see TWEE. And all of these big stores are really just kind of an icing on a cake situation, because they can change so quickly. And we don't ever count on any, big store to replace an order. So we focus 75% of our time on the littler stores. With a little store, I think the first thing you need to know as a brand who's ready to start outreaching to stores, you need to know who your person is. Who's your buyer? What is your buyer like? Where is your buyer shopping? Who does your buyer look at on Instagram? Like, you need to know all of those things. And then once you know that, then you know where that person is shopping. And then you want to target that person and make a list of those stores. And in the end, I was just saying this to our sales team, we have all of this stuff now, but it goes back to the most important thing we really have is our list of stores. And it is so important to put good information in from the beginning, like to set these good habits of Excel documents, and really like an email address, an address, when did you last outreach? The more detail you can put in this to help you be consistent and to be using your time wisely. Like, you can send 100 emails, but if 50 of those email addresses are no longer valid, you're not moving the ball forward. And I still do it, and I love to do it. I pour over lists. I look at, Vogue's best stores of, from 2022, and I will look at their websites. I will look at their Instagram. I will see, do they have a kids department? Would my buyer be in that store? And then I do my research and I find an email address for the buyer, and I will email them. I would say 90% of my work is strictly through emails, not phone calls. I also I keep some chalk in the car trunk. And so if I'm going somewhere, if I'm going to a new town or I'm taking a trip, I will do some research, see what stores are in the area, that we are already in, because I like to come in and I like to introduce myself and let them know who they're buying from, really. And then stores that we want to be in. And I'll drop a sample off to those stores with my card, and I'll introduce myself, ask to see if their buyer is there. And so, it's really like a nice balance of those two things. As far as your outreach to those stores, once you have a few items that you are interested in showing, the next thing is you would create a line sheet. And a line sheet is kind of like a menu, and it's like this one glance. So it's a tiny like product shot. It is how many are in a case pack, how much does the cost for the buyer, what is the retail price. And it gives them just this essence of who your brand is. It kind of makes them want to learn more about you, but also want to know when they're placing an order, what are they actually ordering? And so a lot of it is just a really cleverly worded note, a good email. I always say an email should have action steps. So always say, like, reach out to me for more information, or can't wait to see your PO. And send it with the line sheet, and then constantly follow up. New things are coming out, send an email. We send emails to our list of buyers at least once a week. You want to be forefront in their mind. You want them to be thinking of what you have going on, and you want to be kind of forward planning. So like right now, and that's also a big difference too between the smaller stores and the bigger stores. So you're sending out your line sheets, and I'm going to send it to I assume everyone knows Open House on 13th Street in Philadelphia. So you're going to send it to Open House, and you're sending your line sheet, and you know that Valerie at Open House is going to be placing their orders now for holiday. So you're targeting for holiday buying. But when you're sending your line sheet now to the national stores, they're working on spring. So they've already, like, they're working almost at least a season in advance. Some places work a year in advance. A place like Crate and Barrel or Pottery Barn, it'll take a year for them to get to the point of placing the order. So you have to think about that. Can you preview a year or 6 months in advance? So like right now, we have all of our holiday orders from our nationals, and we are sending out line sheets for spring to them.
Wow.
Well, yes, forget what day it is. You're like, wait, I haven't had Christmas yet, but I'm doing something with Easter. It gets you all messed up.
Yeah, because I can imagine there's different types of products you're targeting at certain seasons, and you gotta be planning ahead.
Yeah, it's crazy how much you have to plan ahead. Like, we had a meeting now about this time next year, and because it's like we have to start working on that. And that's really, again, it's really this delicate balance when you're dealing with the big stores, because the best way to describe it is like they are like a beast that constantly needs to be fed, and it requires a lot of energy. It requires a lot of innovation, and you have to be ready for that. So that's also something to think about. If you are making to sell next week, you need to get yourself ready. You need to start thinking, how can I showcase? Even if it's like, I'm thinking like, even if you make 2 things for the photo to show it to them, and you're not going to put it into production for another 6 months, that's fine. But you still have to have that amount of forward thinking.
I really like the comment that you like humanized all of these interactions, that you are interacting with another human uh, on both ends. And I think that's something that's really easy to forget, that you're not approaching just this large glob of a brand. This is like also relationship building.
It 100% is. And the more the buyer knows that, once you have that relationship, they know it's not just TWEE, they're now talking to Margaux. And going back to the idea of like it being a relationship, I will stop in a store that I know has the product. And if I don't like how the product looks, I will take the product home with me. And I will say, this is not going to sell. Why is this on the floor? I'm going to take it home now, and I will send you another product. But because again, you're only as good as your brand, and so you want the best out there in the storefront. When we first got into Nordstrom and we went, I didn't like where they had put the product, so I moved it to a different shelf. But you have to be shameless. You have to be like, I know my chalk belongs at eye level and I'm going to move it.
Yeah, advocate for yourself on every level.
100%.
I did see some questions coming in more about like developing those relationships. There's a question about like, do you physically go up and introduce yourself like to the register? Like, I think like decode those interactions for us.
You go up and you go up and you say, I'm Margaux. I have this company TWEE. We make handmade sidewalk chalk in Philadelphia. I know we would be perfect for your store. And I say, do you have a buyer's email you can share with me? I'm gonna leave some chalk for them. And I'm gonna reach out in a couple days. So you give these like next steps, but yeah, you literally go up and introduce yourself just like you would a stranger. We do a lot of trade shows. When you are at a trade show, you have like your name tag, and it identifies, what your company is. And if I see a company that I would like to talk to and they have walked by me, I will chase after them down the aisle and introduce myself. And you have to do that. You are your brand's best champion. And you have to, go after what you want.
And I saw someone asking about how many salespeople do you have? And also, when did you decide that you needed salespeople? I think that's an important point.
So I did all of our sales until maybe a year and a half ago. We brought someone on part-time to help with the invoicing, which I found to be kind of monotonous. It was again with this idea of it being very like exacting. So she was helping with that, and then she took over and stayed with us. And then almost a year ago, strangely enough, we actually like have a director of sales. She was my first intern at New York Fashion Week. So, and we have been friendly since then. Her name is Rena, and she works remotely from Brooklyn. And it's been a really great, growing experience for TWEE to have someone who is like just focused on this. And Rena has in the last year really created a team where she focuses on the large stores and the big picture. And she has a manager and an assistant manager. The manager focuses on our drop shippers. And drop shipping is, I don't know if anyone, maybe you, Masonette. It's so you go onto, it's so funny. So you go onto a website and you buy something and you think it's coming from that place, but in actuality, they're just like a storefront and it's coming from TWEE. So they hold no inventory. but because they hold no inventory, they take less of a commission, which is good and bad. So we have someone now, and she focuses on our drop shippers and our direct to consumers. So it's amazing how we've grown just in a year.
Yeah, I know once you have, like, you need inputs in order to output. So I know sales is a hidden piece that's actually very important to bringing some lifeblood into the company.
Mm-hmm.
I say as a salesperson. So
It is, and but like I love doing it so much, and so that is like when I don't want to deal with another problem, I'm like, I'm just gonna look for new stores. So it's nice. It's my favorite thing.
and it's always helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I see a few questions coming in, and I just to get to the other questions I had written down here was, what does the contracts look like? Like, are there any major mistakes and major wins that you had in this first interaction with the big store? And I did see some questions coming in about contracts, so maybe we'll answer the first one first.
Okay, so when you're first being onboarded, that's when you do your negotiations. They say to you, we're going to, and I'm just generally, we're going to buy your product, and we're going to give you $10,000, for your purchase order. And then they're going to say, but let me tell you, so can you pay for shipping? And I'm going to want to return things. Is that cool? Can I return things like 60, 90 days later? And they're going to say, this is a net 60. So what it means is you'll get paid 60 days from the ship date, but we'll give it to you in 30 days, but we'll take 10% off the top. So like that number that they give you, that's not the number you get. They start to whittle it down, and that's when you negotiate what's important to you. So we never, and this is going back to the idea that you have to know your brand, you have to know what works for you, and then you have to be able to see, where am I going to give a little, and where am I going to stay firm in my answers. So like, we don't take returns. We've found that we've done it once. What we got back in a return was not packaged correctly, so we actually made more from our chargebacks on the returns than the pop-up. So that was our one experiment in taking returns. So now we say right off the bat, we don't pay for returns. We say we do not pay for shipping. We say we will wait 60 days. Thank you very much. But other people are different. And that's part of the contract. It is never a bad idea to have a lawyer, especially the first time, so that look it over. It's really for that peace of mind when you're going into it. I think that's a great idea. That's never a bad idea. We were just talking about free resources, and that there's so many free resources in the city. The free library on the Parkway, they have lawyers once a month in their business center who you can for free book time with. So when I say things, it doesn't mean you have to pay for it. It means like most of the time I've found a way around having to pay for it. Like find the free resource to help you is my advice too, because I don't want anyone to feel like it's a price restrictive for them to grow. There's people out there who want to help you. So I say have them look at the first contract with you, but they are fairly standard. They are fairly turnkey. If anything, what they're looking for is that what you asked for and what was decided in your emails back and forth is reflected in the contract. And then you will become, after the first or second one, so skilled at it that you will stop asking the lawyer for it. So sometimes it's a contract, sometimes it's just agreement form. sometimes it's nothing other than the email back and forth. Every store is different. And every getting to the purchase order is different. So know that too, that there's going to be some flexibility needed from you. Even though you might have done it once before, the second time at a different store, it's going to look a little different.
On that, I just want to give a quick plug for the PVLA, Philadelphia Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts.
Thank you.
The Margaux, we were talking before we got on that there are so many free resources where you can connect with, especially legal help. Also SBDCs, small business development centers. Yeah, small business development centers. They often do legal clinics. Often are free. So I think there is a lot of resources out there to get that legal help that she's talking about. I did see also some questions about consignment. Do you strictly do wholesale? Do you have some consignment relationships? How did you determine pricing on that?
We don't do consignment. And the reason is that because it is something that is breakable. If it's not going to, well, I say that, but then we were in Art Star for a while and they are consignment. So let me go back and say, we hardly do consignment because it is something that is not going to, we want it to return to us in the end. So we pick and choose. Going back to the idea that we all know Art Star, it's an amazing store. It is, those two women are so wonderful to makers, and you want to be in that store. And it's consignment. Again, it goes back to this idea of you are your best, you know, your brand is what you protect, and that for us was worth it.
Yeah, I think I see some people saying that they've had challenges with consignment. But yeah, it doesn't work for everyone.
No, it's really, you know, everything doesn't fit every person's business is another part. So you really need to know what your boundaries are, what works for you, what does it matter. For me, it mattered to be in a store like Art Star. But it's such a small portion of our sales, of like our overall thing, that initially I said, no, we were not in consignment. So I would never suggest something like that for, you know, a large portion of your sales. It's too risky, I think.
It's good to know. I think, yeah, I like your strategy of that you're sort of laying out for us, that you're diversifying where your brand is, and giving, you know, figuring out where actually your customers are and getting the product to them.
100%, because, you know, you have more than one customer. So you have the customer who buys your product off your website, and that customer is different than your other customer who is actually the buyer at a large department store. That customer is totally different. And then you have another customer, that one is the one who buys the product from the department store. And so you really have this very big spider web of who you're trying to reach and how you're trying to reach them and what messaging do they want. So, you know, it has to kind of be tailored and shifted as you go down through your funnel.
I think that's a great segue into, I know we're transitioning into questions from the audience. I've been peppering them in there because there's been some really great relevant ones. But I have a question here that actually kind of talks about that. Did you prepare tiers for packages of your line items on your line sheet, or is it just individual items you thought would work best in the shop? How are you tailoring your line sheet to be attractive to the buyer?
So I don't tailor the line sheet. The line sheet is stagnant. It's always that. I tailor my email to the buyer. If it is a store that is all kids, I'll lead with more of our more like whimsical designs. If it's a store that's more of a woman's store that has an occasional like house thing in, I'll choose something a little more sophisticated to highlight in the email. So the email is the chance to say why that store is important to you. And then the line sheet is to let them know the range in which you make. And that's really what I think you want to do in that. And they can choose to, you might think that, product A is the best for the store. And then they look at the line sheet and they're like, oh my gosh, C is amazing. I'm going to get C. So you want to give them that whole view of what you make. I will also say with the line sheet, people will tell you you need a catalog and it needs to be fancy and it needs to be all these. No, you don't need a catalog. That is a waste of money. You just need one piece of paper and that's your line sheet.
Make it simple. If you don't send it out, nothing can happen.
100%.
There's another question actually that I think falls in line with this, which is, can you talk a little bit more about sending samples to stores? This attendee doesn't know where to start. I'm afraid of spending too much money without a return.
You have to decide. Well, so we have like different tiers of boxes we send. So like we have the big one for the big guys, which is what we call like the national retailers. And that'll have like a whole breadth of like our most accessibly priced item, a middle priced item, and a higher price point, so that they can see, again, this idea of a range of what you do. But when we initially started, as far as like general samples go, we picked the least expensive one we had, but it was still a really great design, but the least expensive. We do something too, like when we do a trade show, as far as sampling there, we sell a pack of 3 unicorn horns or 3 narwhal horns, and they're, they're together. But for sampling, we do one in a nice little box with a sticker with all the information. So there's a way to take something really expensive and scale it down to make it a little more accessible, and also be able to say, like, I'm going to spend $20 in product today and send it out. Instead of sending 1 box, I'm able to send 20 because I'm sending single horns. And then you can also think of ways to be creative. Like, I know a lot of people, especially handmade nature of things, your products, your samples are so expensive. So like, let's say you were making guitars, think about a way to send everyone like a pic with like a QR code on it. Like you want to get their attention, and then you want them to learn about your product. So it's really the presentation. It can be as literal as getting a sample, or it could be as creative as you can consider it.
Yeah, I like the idea of expanding outside of what you actually offer and like narrowing in on something that communicates the value of your product without giving them the product. It really is really costly. This is an interesting question that I'm interested too. What is your why for TWEE? If you know that TED Talk with.
Oh, I know. My why is I truly believe that there is a market for this, that it is, it's not been really spoken to before. I have 2 little boys, and there are so many things that talk down to kids. And what TWEE does is elevates an ordinary product, chalk, and makes it so they are able to use their imagination both in seeing it and using it. So like a unicorn horn, how imaginative, you can put it on your head, you think it's a unicorn, and then you draw with it. And I love that. I love that we're promoting imagination. My kids are on the screen all the time. I'm constantly like, this is limited, go outside. I love that we're making something here that is that is getting kids away from that. I love that we are making something that is handmade. I think that is such a foreign concept to people. It's hard for them to even understand like what it means that someone is making it and then made in the US and that it's packaged here and shipped from here. Like I that's one of my whys. And my other why is that, you know, I want to see more women business owners. I want to make room for them, and I want to nurture the people, the makers here to be their own businesses. And so I do it for that too. Like, you know, those days where you're like, I have had enough and I'm going to lay in bed and I'm going to scroll my inspirational screenshots that I've taken for the last 6 months. And then the next day, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to go in because of all those reasons. So long-winded, that's my why. I have many of them, I guess.
That's a good thing, though. I think the multiple, like, I hear you calling out multiple aspects of the business, and
Yes.
you've like developed whys for each of them, and it's almost a tool in motivation as well. Yeah, what's your intrinsic drive to do the thing that you don't want to do every day?
This is not how I planned it. This is not what I prepared for. I've always described TWEE as a gorilla, and she is just like barreling down the jungle. And I'm holding on to her back. It's like a Godzilla, like our King Kong kind of situation. And I'm just like holding on to her back for dear life. So I'm like a steward of this, and I'm just trying to do the best I can.
That is a great perspective on it. Yeah, I see people echoing they loved it in the chat. I think we have time for maybe a few more questions. This is back to business questions. Do you make more profit from wholesale or direct to consumer from your website?
So it's so funny because this whole talk, if I knew now what I knew then, I would tell you, do not do this. And I know I've just spent an hour telling you how to do it. If I could go back in time, I would take all that I could to focus on my direct consumers. That is harder to do than getting into stores. But you get, in terms of revenue, so much more. So I wish early on we had focused on that way more than we did. Wholesale, and especially the big stores, it is something that's, and I think I said it before, it constantly needs to be fed, and for it to keep going. And just because you were in this, there's no promise of longevity. There is no promise that there's another PO coming, and you constantly have to be cycling that through. But if you have a direct to consumer buyer, and then you funnel that buyer into your universe, and they become a fan, and then a super fan, and then they're buying multiple times a year, that could last you way longer of a relationship than the one buyer at Neiman Marcus.
Do you think you would ever transition away from the strategy you're doing now?
No.
You're already in.
We're in too deep right now, so we're gonna just keep going this way.
I think that's a really like valuable perspective, though, to hear that, because it is hard. That I think those first sales are the hardest. But yeah, you described it like a gorilla. Once it starts moving, it can outrun you.
Yes, 100%. You want to stay behind it. You don't want to get in front, because then you'll get smashed. But it really is like we're now focusing on both things simultaneously and with as much vigor for both of them. But that's, we're almost 6 years old before we've been able to come full circle to give that direct to consumer the kind of attention it needs and deserves.
On that topic, how do you drive traffic to your website right now? What's your major channel for marketing?
So we do a lot of Instagram. We do a lot of press. We fall back a lot on gift guides, on reaching out to editors, on really like getting as many eyes on the chalk as possible. I have a little system that I like to use where I will DM celebrities, where I will DM them on like Sunday nights, these cute little messages like, I love donuts and unicorns and think you do too. Can I send you some chalk? And it works, actually, it works really well. So we do a lot of that to get that kind of exposure. We do everything that all of you are doing. Is our SEO? Do we have our keywords? How can we, maximize the time that they spend on a page? Like, it doesn't matter if your revenue is $10 a month or $1 million a month. Everyone, in terms of getting people onto their website, are asking and doing the same exact things.
I think that's should be encouraging to everyone that if you're doing those things, you're doing them right. Just keep doing them. And I think you talked about before. It's a numbers game. Just get as many opportunities out there, and some will return for you. Mm-hmm. Since we're almost at the end, I want to just ask my closing question here, which is, if someone is just getting started with, approaching stores, thinking about taking that next step, what's 3 things that they should focus on?
So I think it's know who your customer is. Really, you need to know her like she or he or they are your best friend. You need to have good product shots, white backgrounds. That's something even now I still struggle with, because I think our photos are so good, but they look so much better in real life. So you just want to do and I'm sure so many makers have that problem, that it's so hard to translate the beauty into a photograph. So really get some good photos, white backgrounds, in and out of the box, because that's what the buyer wants to see. And then really a good, clean looking line sheet. And I think really those 3 things are the once you get those together, you're ready to present.
Yeah, and then you're ready to move forward.
Oh my God, 100%. And, I will also say, like, for product shots, we do some here, but for like when I'm like, we really need it to be like top notch, we use that Suna.com. They do it for you. You can be live with them. It's a great resource to use. It's really helped us kind of when we want that super professional look, to be able to get it, to get the consistency for it, because that's what you want. You want photos that are consistent.
I am just linking that in the chat, because I think other people will want to look at that. It's Suna.co. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I think, since we have maybe a few minutes left, I also want to hear, we talked at the beginning about resources. Yeah, so I would love to hear, you are like the queen of free resources. So I'd love to hear a little about like the ones you've taken advantage of in Philadelphia, ones that are national, gives people a concept of actually what's out there.
It is, and I have only admittedly have only scratched the surface. I am a graduate of the Community College of Philadelphia's Power Up Your Business program. That's where we started. You at every level, there's different things that you need to be considered for that, cohort. I don't remember what power up was. Maybe that you had a business license and you had sold something. Like it was an interesting experience because it was for very new businesses, but also very old businesses that were trying to become more official and more strategic. That was a great experience. They really brought in resources for you. They said, you need an accountant, and this is why you need an accountant. It was really like business 101. And I needed that. And then from there, the next level is the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses. We did that. And again, a free resource. They bring in the best experts, and they kind of take power up and they make it, they kind of like supercharge it. That was amazing. What was also amazing for that is the camaraderie that you get with the other small businesses, because you'll get to a point where no one understands what you're talking about, and your friends are tired of hearing you talking about like your UPS account and why it's not working. But these people, they care and they understand because they're all doing the same. And that was really great. And they're all doing it in Philadelphia, which is even more amazing. So that's a really great resource. I also want to say that we did not have enough sales, or there was something we didn't have enough of, or we hadn't been in business long enough to get into the Power Up program. But I convinced them to take us. And then we didn't have enough sales to be in the Goldman Sachs, but I convinced them to take us. So I want to say to all of you, always ask if there is, like, if this goes back to being shameless. If you know that class is what you need, you email whoever you need to email to secure your spot. And they have been so incredibly supportive and so helpful. And then from there, we applied to the Tory Burch Foundation. Tory Burch is from Philadelphia. And we were rejected the first year. But again, I'm like, this is where we need to be. So we apply again and we were accepted. And again, it's this leveling up. It's, the concepts are always the same, accounting, marketing, scaling. But with every level, with every new cohort, you're getting a different experience, you're getting different helpers. And you're getting a different opinions, and that's really so cool. But there's like a DVIRC, which helps promote manufacturing in, like, I think Northeastern Pennsylvania. They're an amazing resource for anyone who's doing production work. I am so excited for the mentorship program that NextSab has going on. I cannot encourage people enough to apply to that. It is targeted towards all of you, to makers, and it's going to talk about all the things that are important to you as you kind of get your bearings as business owners. Like, just off my head, there's 4 right there. But Wharton has amazing programs where they'll pair you with teachers or students to be parts of projects, and you can get help there for free. The business center at the Free Library, amazing. First, it's beautiful. It's a great place to go and do your work just for a change of scenery. But then aside from that, they bring in patent attorneys, they bring in regular attorneys. They can teach you how to do like all these crazy research things. So the resources are out there. I know, like, looking for them seems daunting, but it's definitely worth your time.
Yes, yeah, there's so many free resources out there. Thank you for the list. I tried to link as many as I could catch in there, and we'll try and include some in the follow-up email. I also just want to give a plug. We do a conference every year, a digital conference similar to this, just 3 days long, and it's really a place where we bring in people from all these free resources to actually talk about, what they offer. And we get to hear from other artisans and makers about their experience. It's called Tools of the Trades. We do have a website, toolsofthetrades.org. Schedule is not up for next year yet, but that should be coming out in the next couple months. So we'd love to have you come. And yes, Adrian, it was great to have you last year. And as I mentioned, we are sending out the recording. I think it may come the next few days, but we will send out a follow-up email with all of that. So if you missed anything, you can watch it again. And I just want to thank Margaux. This was amazing. Thank you for all your insight and your passion behind your business. It really shows. And I think you really demystified a lot of things that seem mysterious to a lot of small businesses as they're growing.
And I just want to say, our email address is hello@TWEEmade. If you have questions or you just want to connect, send me an email. We've learned from the ground up, and part of why I'm here is because I believe in this idea of handmade and makers, and I want to help anyone that I can.
Thank you. I'm sure people will take you up on it. And before we close, we're right over time, but we are having another webinar in about a month, Thursday, October 20th. We're going to be talking actually about how to get into craft stores and retail stores, and really talk about more like the photography aspect, some of the stuff that Margaux talked about today that is extremely important when you're entering that arena. We're going to be talking about that in more detail. So hope to see you all there. We will be sending out a message when that is posted. So thank you again. And I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.